think the United States thinks that, or do I think that?
You think the United States?
Yes, I think that the Bible Belt thinks that. Dispensationalists, theological Christians, that does not include Seventh-day Adventists, at least officially. But there's a number of delays within the Adventist Church that actually agree with most of, like, big parts of America, Bible Belt, evangelical, or conservative Christians. It's based on the notion that God's covenant with Israel was permanent, and that still they have a role to play as a people. Seventh-day Adventists, on the other hand, teach that at the moment that the veil in the temple was torn, it was too tall for me to reach it. It was torn with unseen hands from top to bottom at the moment that Jesus yielded his spirit on Friday of the crucifixion. That at that point, the covenant that had been made, they had finally broken it to the point that now the new covenant was with spiritual Israel. So that the covenant he made with the nation of Israel now was with those that were in spiritual Israel, which were the followers of Jesus. So Seventh-day Adventists teach that there's no special regard for Israel any more than there is for any other people groups. I can argue both sides. If I believe that it was my God-appointed duty to take care of them, that they were still special anointed, some people believe that the reason that God keeps blessing the United States to the degree that he does, which is imagined to be the case, that's believed to be the case, over and above other nations, is because they're taking care of Israel. And as long as they do that, they'll enjoy God's special protection. They'll win the wars they engage in. They'll have economic domination over the rest of the world. That is common. In fact, maybe most Christians in the United States believe that. I'm not going to say it's unchristian, but I will say it's diametrically opposed to the philosophy, the teachings, and example of Jesus. But one thing we need to keep really clear, Jesus was definitely not a Christian. Jesus was not a Christian, and for the most part, Christianity does not follow Jesus' teachings. They're against many of Jesus' main teachings in Christianity at large. Not surprising. Throughout history, the founders of spiritual and religious movements, their followers end up attributing to them typically the things that they were most against. Because usually they're people who are against the status quo and against the institutions of the day, because those institutions have become manipulated to the point that powerful people are abusing the weak. And most of the time when somebody has the spiritual fervor of a mystic, especially in Jesus' case, it's to suggest that that's not appropriate, that it's never appropriate, and they usually resist sort of organizing that kind of an institution while they're alive, and as soon as they're gone, then that's what their followers get rid of and do. When oppressed people are given power, as often as not, they become twice the oppressor as those that oppress them. There's an imagination when people are poor today. They don't want anything to change in terms of having a caste system, because they actually believe the American dream is that they're going to end up there. And when it happens, they want their turn to have more than other people. It's a little bit like when I was a high school freshman. It was perfectly legal, and it was okay with the school officials to pay freshmen to do initiation pranks and rituals and all 1976, I started my freshman year. Literally, faculty were helping and providing resources to the upperclassmen to Hayes as a freshman. And during my freshman year, toward the end of my freshman year, there had been a lot of pranks that went bad in the country. West Point was a real famous one. They had some ridiculous thing where they had like a blade, a big blade that, a weighted thing that was pretty scary, and it was set up so that the person was supposed to have it start here and then go out and then come back, and there was a board that was supposed to go, if you had some device, well, the device failed and it killed somebody. And that was just one of a slew of these things that went bad. So it became a federal law in the education code that you cannot haze or initiate people in an educational setting. So people in my class were sort of like, wait a minute, we had our underpants pulled up, all the way up, and we had frog guts in our locker and got thrown in the ocean on the school trip and all that stuff. Where's our outlet? So that's kind of like, people are hoping, yeah, I let it change after I get a chance to serve someone else. That's not an altruistic or very Jesus-like motive to want to maintain a caste system. Let's pray and we'll talk some more about it. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we have the example that we do. We're grateful that we're promised that it is possible for our characters to improve. And we're grateful for the hope that we have. Salvation in Jesus' name. There are many things going on in the government. Suffice it to say that in these cycles, it's the first time in any of your memories that we've had quite this kind of a like when the roulette wheel comes around, it like comes up on this number. But it happens cyclically in not just our country but all over the world. It is a logical outcome of a semi-democratic republic. No matter what form of government, clever people manage to find ways to get more than their share. My dad's parents and their parents had a saying that explained their notion of the political, economic structure of the world. They said that in order to understand how life works, you just need to realize that the big ones take it away from the little ones, and then the smart ones take it away from the big ones. And it's kind of what you're seeing. Any history majors here? Anybody history major? Anyone have a real interest in U.S. history? Okay. If you want to have something to compare it to, the way it might play out, it might not too, but it might play out. Take a look at Andrew Jackson's presidency. You'll find some parallels, and the way that the presidency is now handling things sort of by fiat right now. Jackson did a lot of that, and he was willing to flip the bird to the courts and to the legislators. And he got a lot of things done. So his list had a lot of things checked off of it, and some of them were persistent. He's on the $20 bill right now. A few of the things that he did ended up being good things by most people's standards. A lot of things that he did upset a lot of people and set a tone for the country that maybe we've not completely recovered from. It's a young country that we're in. It's a very young country, and we see things that are confusing, and that's not an accident. People split the agendas between two, like ball teams, take what would like logically go together with a person reasoning consistently, and they put half of it over here and half of it over here. And they take the other half and do that like this, so that it doesn't ever make complete sense. And it allows the parties to turn on a dime and still be true to half of each, in any presidency or in any midterm election. It allows being able to shift and say, well, look, we're doing this. I know that compromises this other stuff. I know, I'm sorry, but this right now, this is our party's agenda, and we have to take care of it. And then later on, when it's convenient, they can just dial it the other direction. We're going to talk about politics because politics is a branch of philosophy. And when we talk about what Plato talked about, and he has Socrates in the dialogue, in the play that he wrote, saying about politics. Athens, where Socrates and Plato lived, was a democracy, and that was not a common thing. It was not exactly like we think of a democracy, but the U.S. isn't a democracy like we think of it as a democracy either. People are profoundly able to entertain ideas that don't make sense together about the way our government is arranged. You got to see that in this election, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what the popular vote was. It didn't matter. People say, well, that's because of the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a device that allows gerrymandering. Gerrymandering means redrawing districts and redrawing all kinds of representation and assigning like representative votes or electoral votes in a strategic way that you could never entertain in one thought to make sense of it. Is anybody here, you think you could go to the board and explain to me the logic of the, like if you'd been running in this election, how you would have needed to play the Electoral College to get in? Is anybody who's straightforward to you? It's not to me either. I mean, we could make a spreadsheet, and we could have that make some charts and everything. We could look it up online. But if you looked it up online, you would find information both directions. You would not get a clear statement about it. And if you remember the card trick that I showed you, if it comes out the way I hope it comes out, if I'm trying to get you to the Ace of Hearts, and I say, what suit? And you say, clubs, and I say, okay, that leaves the other three suits. Now those other three suits, you eliminate spades, and then we're left with hearts and diamonds. And I say, so just throw out one. And when I say throw out, I mean that more than one way. I mean that whichever way you necessitate me meaning it. Throw it out means just give me your choice off the top of your head, or it means throw it into the trash if it's the one I don't want. I'll decide that after I hear what your vote is. And then the last card that I allow through that filter of horse manure is the card that's where I know it is in my pocket, and so I can pull it out. We get excited if we make a referendum for the ballot, so that there's a proposition that people forced, the legislators didn't put it there. We got enough signatures, and we got it cleared by the courts, and it goes on the ballot. And then we go to the polls and we vote it. Now, if people that are wealthy and powerful, legislators that are on the take and getting all kinds of bribes for voting a certain way, people that have campaign promises to fulfill, if the vote comes out the way they want, they say, see how the process works? You guys, congratulations, and good try, too. You almost got it. But if it does pass, then a federal judge, if it's not something that the powerful people and their feds want, a judge will then rule that it's not actually constitutional, and it will be stricken. It won't be stricken immediately. It'll be given a stay. And then it'll hang out in the courts for a couple of years until all the coalitions break up and there's no nexus, there's no constituency that's organized. They've gone different ways, they're on to something else. And then, when it looks like they're really concerned about other things, they'll create an event in the news that's huge, and then that afternoon, they'll just say, oh, and by the way, remember that's got to go. And then you won't have your law. That's how it's played. If, however, it was just played really straightforward, we could be seeing exactly what we're seeing right now in the presidential election. If you go on Facebook and you look at your own friend group, unless you're like really trying to be homogenous, to have only people agree with you on your deal. I've got, 1,300 or 1,400 friends, and they're from all ages and all parts of the world, and I've got people that are saying, in my contacts, that are saying, finally, let's get rid of all those Muslims. And then we've got other people in my contact list that are saying, what's going on here? I don't recognize my country. There's really a division in kinds of people. And that division isn't a static line. It depends on what issue. That's what it is to divide the parties the way I was describing, where you take half of the stuff that makes sense together and put it in one party and half in the other party. If the Republican Party was truly concerned to have less government and less nanny babysitting telling you like a child what you can and cannot do, then it would be consistent with that. But it's not. The same party that says you should be able to have a gun is telling you you can't make up your own mind about religious things like abortion. And on the other side, you've got equally confusing nonsense from the Democrats the way it's divided up. I have no loyalty to either party, and half of those issues I really could argue both ways. But that's not what's important. What's important is that it's a flow of ideas and a flow of money, and people have figured out how to put a turbine, a generator, on all those kinds of flows and become unimaginably wealthy. You know what Jesus' attitude was about that whole federal process? Do you remember what Jesus said about the whole federal government in his day? He just steered clear of it. People asked him about paying taxes, and he hadn't paid his taxes because he wasn't working at the time. He was walking around and eating what people gave him, and they really didn't tax it. They just wanted a certain amount of money in the life. And he said, go catch a fish. When they caught a fish, there was a coin in the fish's mouth. Give it to him. I mean, that demonstrates how he's not impressed with their power. He's a ruler of nature. He demonstrated in his response. But he said, another time, should we pay taxes? He said, well, whose name was on the money? Caesar. Well, guess it's his. Give it to him. He just didn't care about money or taxes or the federal government. Just nothing. Yes.
I had a friend who was making that point where God puts people into authority and so we have to obey and respect them and whatnot. But
Well, that's what Romans 13 says.
right, and that's the chapter he referenced.
But that's the same thing they said in Nazi Germany.
Exactly.
Exactly what they said in Nazi Germany. There are no simple answers. Simple minds require simple answers. This course is about how to recognize that you can't afford to be simple-minded. And it's to put you on notice that nearly, absolutely everybody is. And that every one of us, if we just relax for a minute, if we stop looking in, we'll miss the fact that we're that way too. Just like with our intelligence illustration where we say somebody's profoundly developmentally disabled and they have a
180 IQ and we have 120 IQ, they look to us and their reasoning resembles to us what 160 IQ would think looking at us. Same thing with intellectual honesty and complexity of thought. I don't think I've had a month go by where I don't realize what an idiot I was last month. It makes me really reluctant to get up there and rant for the whole world on social media. I'd be so embarrassed if I was saying some of the things on social media that I rant around the house. You know? And things that I'm thinking inside and going, don't say it. You better think this through. There's just infinite complexity, and every month I get another side to a story that I thought was straightforward. You know? I have been in favor my entire life of governments not taking firearms or other weapons away from people because it makes you so the government, you don't have any way to deal with the government if you need to. And our founders said it's our moral duty to overthrow the government if it comes to that point when we need to have the arms in order to do it. Plus, I think the logic is ridiculous to allow the only people who are walking around with a gun to be people who don't care about the law. That scares me. Then I go to the range, a public range, and I watch how people shoot, and I say, oh, geez. And I watch how they handle their stupid car when all the road rage. You know, that scares me. I know how people reason. I know how they get upset. I spent almost 16 years as a cop, and I'm really scared of making the wrong choice. And many times, I have chosen to be unarmed in situations where it might have been a better idea to be armed, because I thought, and this is so backwards, well, this is the kind of thing where something could go down. Now think of the irony. Because I'm scared to death of making the wrong decision, or of just being part of a degree off when I'm nervous, when I pull the trigger, it scares me to death. I'd rather take a bullet than shoot somebody that shouldn't be shot. Any day. So it's not simple. It's not simple. It's not simple either about whether or not one benefit or another ought to be just a given, a right rather than a privilege. It's hard to say. I spent a year when I was at Andrews University. I spent a year as the student wellness program director and the assistant director of personnel wellness, and the director of, or coordinator of, a comprehensive employee health care cost reduction study for the university, which was self-insured for its health benefits. This is before benefits started getting like they are now. It was just simple. You had a job, you go to the doctor, they pay for it, period, done deal. That's it. It wasn't, this was the beginning of the era of, boy, we should prune that back. Why are we listening to physicians when we could be listening to MBAs to tell us what should be done and everything? So I went through every claim that had been submitted for the past decade for Andrews University. I went through and I evaluated each claim, one at a time. It took a whole year, and it took hours and hours and hours way into the night. And there were people who would have a bit of a rash, a few pimples out of place that would drive to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, because only the best is good enough for their pimple. And do you know what that cost the university? Instead, the university had a doctor's office with 2 jet-hot family practice physicians, identical twins. They were, I would be willing to go find them today. They were exceptionally skilled and exceptionally compassionate men. Excellent. It was on campus. And those guys could have looked at that and said, you know what, quit scratching that. And that would have been the end of it, and it would have cost, the school $15. But no, $1,500 later, they go to Minnesota and they say, quit scratching it. End of story, go home. Here's the bill, Andrews. So if you just give it, and it's just so easy, then you think people are bad having access to WebMD today. You would have a percentage of the population who would spend more time at the doctor than they did at work, when really what they need is to get off their butt and get busy and quit scratching it. They get told by one person, and that should be enough, but at the other end, you have miserable stories of people who get aced out, fall between the cracks, and they die because you allow business people to be jerking around with actuarial figures while someone needs immediate attention. Well, we're not sure, we'll take it to a committee. Trained to tell you no until you basically sue them into saying yes, and they die before the thing can run its course. I don't have an answer. I don't know what would be the best thing. I fall on the side of probably the best thing. If you just required me to give you an answer right now, and then it was going to get implemented, I would make healthcare a basic right, period. And I would have physician referees, not businessmen referees. And I would have things in place to identify hypochondriacs, and they would receive special attention of another kind. It turns out that a lot of times, if you would let them go get a massage once a week, they would stay out of the clinic. That helps. If you bring in a masseuse in-house, people get touched, and somebody says, oh yeah, I feel this, and they make up a term for it or whatever. And they, oh yeah, someone considered me, because they need that attention. They didn't get it at some point when they were children, or something. And I would probably give everybody a basic income. It wouldn't be huge, but it would keep you out of the gutter and out of the street. And then if you wanted to work and become wealthy, then more power to you. But I would limit personal wealth to some reasonable degree, so that the taxation above that for everything you possess and everything you earn would be taxed at 100%. Go ahead, play the game, but you're going to turn it in at the end. Because individuals should not get most of the money in circulation. If they do, they can't be held accountable. There's no way to hold them accountable. You can't afford to ever prosecute them. There's no way that they have to follow the rules that everyone else has to. There's no way their kids get treated the same by the cops as somebody in low income brackets, and that's not okay.
How does that work then if, from like a, I don't know, ethical, I don't know the right word, but say, like my friend just wants to become a garbage man, like he wants to, he finds joy in emptying trash off the street,
Sure.
that truck. And I'm like, I think it might be a specialty in some kind of special orthodontic thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 4-year college plus their 8 years.
You're going to make a bungload more money than you.
So then, if you're saying that everyone be taxed over a certain point at 100%.
Oh, it would be a huge amount of money. I don't mean $100,000. I mean enough to make you happy. Really, really.
Okay,
a lot of money. And that would change. It depends on how much is in circulation. And you'd look at the tables and you'd say, we can't have 3 or 4 people having all, more than half of the money in the country. But I would say it would be huge, like $100 million. It would be big, because there's no reason to not have people that are makers and that are making good things for other people that put out, they should be rewarded. But there comes a point where you get so much money, you're not getting it so you can enjoy life. You're getting it because you enjoy making sure other people don't. And we don't need to allow that. And anybody who we find functioning in a way that's taking schadenfreude economically, go to prison. You don't enjoy getting people out their house. You know, we would build that in so that just wasn't going to happen.
You mentioned paying minimal income. Don't you think that there would still be people that would find ways of like throwing that away either
Yes.
and not making good
Yes.
decisions,
Uh-huh.
and they would still find them put themselves in like a bad place?
Like they want to be a hobo on a railroad track with a stick and their possessions hanging from the end of it.
So at that
Fine.
point, is it just like if that's your decision, go for it? But
Sure.
at least I gave you.
Exactly.
Okay.
What happens in Alaska or Kuwait? It's exactly what happens in both places for the oil money. It's exactly what happens. It's a good system. Society doesn't fall apart. There's still plenty of motivation and industry. You can still get workers, lots of workers. So all those arguments say you can't, it's nonsense.
What were the two places again?
Alaska and Kuwait get an allowance, or just you get a reverse tax. That's what it is. It's a reverse tax.
So what if someone took like that minimum amount of money and just spent it all on like drugs? Would you still continue to give them that funding?
Sure. If they're not feeding their kids, though,
And they're spending on drugs, not taking care of themselves or their family.
right. Well, you know, there comes a point, I mean, and we can discuss who, but there's certain folk that that are seeing like people that aren't there and everything, and that are hearing voices telling them to hurt other people. And before the Proposition 13 Jarvis-Gann initiative, back when I was actually a bit younger than you, in California and the rest of the country. It started in California and it was a big movement across the country. If you were needing a mental hospital, you were in a mental hospital. You weren't laying in urine-soaked clothes out on a heating grate down on Main Street. If you were mentally ill, you were put someplace and treated with decency. You had a clean bed, TV, a huge grassy tree. Napa State Hospital was that before it was a prison. It's a prison now. It's a psychiatric prison, but before it was a psychiatric prison, when it was actually just a mental hospital, that's where I did my abnormal psychology labs when I was a student at QC. And people that you see on the street, we never saw those people on the street. You went to the state hospital to see those people. They ate decent. I sat there and ate the same food they did. I sat there in the day room watching TV with them. Took them bowling, walks, and it's a very beautiful place. Now they're in jail or they're in the street.
Why are they in jail on the street now?
Because they break the law. As soon as they break the law, then they go to jail. If they're on the street, it's because they didn't break the law.
I thought if you're mentally ill and you break the law, you would be put into a mental hospital.
If you are ruled criminally insane and you do something that's a major felony, like you kill somebody, but you're not going to go to Napa State Hospital for shoplifting. You just go to jail. For, stupid vandalism, writing cuss words on the side of the building at Home Depot or something, you're just going to go to jail. And then you do stuff while you're in jail that gets you socked up, and you fight, you get in trouble, you stay there longer. But people that are like that, I had people going and asking me to put them in jail. They would come say, could you just put me in jail? It's like 17 degrees outside. And they're freezing, and they're seeing me heading in to go work in the Justice Center. They say, what would it take for me to be able to go to jail? I say, I can't put you in jail. No, seriously, just say I did something. I say, let's see, you did something. Plus, I have a toothache. I want to see the dentist tomorrow. So, you've been inside before. I have. You have anything pending? Got any warrants? No. Run me and see. Okay. No, they don't. So, okay. Sorry, dude. I mean, why don't you go see that shelter? No, they're full. Okay, so I turn around, start heading in, and you hear glass breaking. He went and got a rock from the planter and did 2 headlights and patrol cars in the parking lot. But now I can put you in. I've had it happen 3 or 4 times, just almost like that. People that got released, and they say, please don't release me, I want to stay. I know if I get out, I'm going to get high again, and then I'm probably going to die this time. So they go out in the lobby, pick up a chair, put it through the window, and then wait.
So, do you think that not guilty by reason of insanity, that law that sometimes people are insane, but because it's such a harsh one to qualify for, that it keeps
Yeah,
a
it
significant
almost
amount of people out of
almost
jail?
never happens. We'll give people that are insane the death penalty today.
I mean, I know it's really hard to qualify for that, but do you think there are people who are insane that don't get that because it's so harsh?
Absolutely, I've seen them. I've seen them. You better believe it. There's people that are nuts, and they're also, they don't understand right from wrong, and they go to prison, and then they get taken advantage of and hurt in prison. They don't get protected in prison.
So you're saying when you were a student here, society was, I don't know if I understood correctly, but society was okay
It was
with
just transitioning.
paying for people that were less fortunate
Correct.
for many reasons.
Correct. Our
to
state
give them-
taxes, state by state, were very much higher, mostly property taxes. The Jarvis Gann Initiative, Prop 13, was important because, I'm arguing the other side now. What was happening was real estate values were climbing like with another digit that could be added in a year. So somebody retires and their house is paid for. They paid $11,000 for it. So it gets reassessed as often as their county assessor is prompted by the state to go reassess it for its value. So when they reassess it, then you have to ante up a certain percentage of its value for property taxes. But if they paid $11,000 and say that their pension is $18,000 a year, and then the house goes up to $1.2 million in value, the property taxes could be 3 years of their fixed income. They're going to lose their house. So they take the house and sell it at auction, and they're homeless. Go get a little camp trailer. Literally, that was happening to people. So they responded to that by saying, well, the taxes are too high. So one of the things that Jarvis Gann did was it said, when you buy the thing, that's the basis forever. You sell it, then the next people gets assessed. And so that was a huge amount of money over time that they started losing, the state started losing. Plus they just lowered it in general. They cut out much of the public ed. California was twice as effective at educating their children as the runner-up. There were no countries or states that had public education as effective as California's. Now we're at the bottom of the outhouse trough.
The reason why I ask is because in today's maybe not as gay but conservative Christian outlets, you hear people saying, well, it's not the government's job to do that. It's churches, it's local. It's
Right.
your
Churches aren't
responsibility.
going to do anything. I mean, they're going to do something, but it doesn't even pick the scab off the problem.
Yeah.
They just don't have it. People aren't that generous. Horse manure, they're keeping the money to themselves in most cases. Yes, they give, but the people that give are the poorest people. The wealthiest people give the lowest percentage of their income in most cases.
Because reading this chapter, we're talking about morality and all that. You would think that if the government's not going to do it, we need to do it as individuals, right? I mean, can't force anybody else.
How are we going to do it? Where are you going to go find a refugee? How are you going to vet them? You need the government. There's certain things that
Well, there's just the local people.
What if
like the people
somebody's
that used to be here.
bonkers, insane? You going to bring them in the home with kids in the home?
Right, not your home, but shouldn't we try to do something at our local churches? I mean,
If we tried at a local church, what do the neighbors say?
they get upset. that you're
Right,
bringing
because
that.
you're bringing in that element to their neighborhood. Right. You try to feed people, and they make rules. The same people that are saying, let's just handle it privately. The same people, when you see people go, all right, we'll handle it privately, they demand laws to forbid even feeding the people that can't eat, to make it against the law to hand them a sandwich. Yay, Florida. I mean, there are people that ask that spikes be put everywhere they see these people laying down. It's just hate. It's just hate.
How do laws like that get passed if they're like ethically not right?
Because people are not ethically right. People are profoundly selfish for the most part. There's a. Let's break out the real stuff here. You know, it depends what's right, like ethically right. It depends on who you ask, doesn't it? What's right? Something brighter, maybe my orange. Oh yeah, orange one. If you ask somebody what's right, for something to be right means it furthers what they think is good and it discourages what they think is not good or bad, right? Who says what's good and bad? Who's that up to? Society?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Everyone is a whole.
So, the 51% meanest people? Is that who decides the 51% most selfish? The 51% stupidest? Let's think about two things. Let's say do you want to live a good life? Do you want your life to be good, or do you want it to be crap? I personally want mine to be good. I want yours to be good. Okay? The good life. So we can agree that we all want a good life. How similar do you think our notions of what that means really are? I mean, some people like to base jump. They like to base jump and they like to do MMA. The good life to them is to take a regular beating on the mat. It's good times. Some people, the good life is getting crocked so that they can't remember their weekend. And I think you can imagine that for all those things I've said, there's people who would not accept that that's what they consider a very good life. Did Mother Teresa live a good life? Was that a life well lived? Nobel Peace Prize.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, but I mean, most people alive today on Earth, would they say, oh yeah, she was a pretty good lady.
Yeah, you can say that she did a lot.
She was a good, can you admire her?
Personally, yes.
Yes, okay. So, there are some people and some lives that you can admire. Martyrs. I admire martyrs. Okay? There's no martyrs, though, that I envy. I don't envy them. But let's be honest, there's people that you envy. Think about it. They're living a good life. Their pool has an indoor part and an outdoor part. Their car has 12 cylinders. Their car, when you start, it goes vroom, know what I mean? Instead of, people put those little booty horns on their exhaust pipe. I feel bad for them when they do that. So they're going, that's not, nobody's fooled. That doesn't, that reduces your power. It's kind of sad, you know. People that, they don't have a brand new Unimog. They don't have a Mercedes that's got like 4 axles, you know, with a big snorkel that comes up top and ladders and all the pipes around it and everything. And inside it's all like fancy neon lighting, you know. Oh, those fancy. No, people get a truck because they want to look like they go 4-wheeling, so they raise it up so it's this high. That's not good for 4-wheeling. They've never left the city. If they have, they rolled their stupid truck. It doesn't help. You want big tires, you don't want tall axles. And tall center of gravity is, that's great big truck. Whatever you want to think. I mean, let's be honest. You see like lifestyles of the rich and famous people that have their own Cessna Citation and a pilot, you know, or a Falcon 10, and they're taken around in a Falcon 10. They got a helicopter that takes them to work. They're going, man, that sucks to be in traffic, and they're flying over it, talking to people on their headset, you know. Can you envy anything in this life? You know, people that are always scuba diving in the Caribbean. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't done that, well, you should. You need to. So, when you say, I want to live a good life, do you mean you want to live an admirable life or an enviable life? What about your kids? When you have kids, do you want your kids to be martyrs? You know, raise up a godly woman, raise up a godly man, and then they go get burned at the stake? You want to do that? Or would you rather raise them up, and then when you're talking to people and you're getting a little bendy out of this, you know, talking to your friends, saying, yeah, they just bought another house in Naples, and so they're back and forth all the time from Greece to Naples to Harvard, and yeah, her practice is really kind of taken off, and she's kind of thinking of bringing some other people in, maybe having her own hospital. And then you're going, oh yeah. But you probably don't want to say, yeah, they went up on the Amazon to do some mission work, and they died of dysentery. The whole lot of them. Both my son and my daughter and their families and their children, they all died of amoebic dysentery. You got to really admire their sacrifice. But is that honestly how you want your life to go? How are we going to ask for a clear voice from the country on this when each one of us has trouble answering it for ourselves? Yes, Samantha.
I don't know how you would like tell the country this, but on a personal level, I think about contentment and can be content or discontent in any situation.
Yes, you can. Have you always been content? Have you always been content? Have you had some discontent? So at any time, you know, that part of your life, are you content now? Or what percentage of your life have you been content? It fluctuates on the day. So in the country, that's a reality times 350 million. It's probably actually less than half that are content at any one point. Either way.
To answer your question, to me a good life is one that's purposeful. So for instance, making a difference in the life of somebody who's less fortunate than yourself.
Okay? That's important because research proves that the greatest bang for your buck, even if we're talking about money, but it's true of time, it's true of anything, of allocating your resources over which you have prerogative. The greatest way to make yourself happier is to give it to someone else or to give it to a charity. Period.
Yeah, like the times in my life, or even like the days, are that you feel more, or at least I feel more content. It's like when you decide like to take the focus off yourself.
Yes.
And kind of just dwelling on what you're happy about. Like say, oh, okay, I'm gonna help, or like maybe this person was having a bad day, or like where your ethics around someone else's day, and then that's when I felt more content.
I have trouble.
Not that you should not that you shouldn't take care of yourself, but I mean, personally, the times I felt more content are when I'm not relying on what I'm telling others.
Yes. It's very difficult for me to picture you wearing a Make America Great Again hat at a Trump rally. Just by the tone of your temperament, I have trouble actually picturing you or anybody like you being there and embracing that kind of agenda. But there's people here that I would say, yeah, maybe.
I think we really stereotype.
Well,
Or it's like,
you know why we stereotype? Because of the 80-20 rule. The thing that kind of gets us when people stereotype about us is that people like us about 80% of the time, the thing they're saying is probably true. But the 20% is either the way we are or the way we're wanting to see ourselves. And prejudice is almost not ever without some basis. Doesn't mean it gives you the whole story. The person pointing fingers at you or your group, they and their group could be twice as guilty of it, but that doesn't affect whether it's true of you. In the case of the people that are getting the American Boot of Fellowship right now, immigrants, as they have come to the U.S. throughout the United States history, when you get a wave of people who come because things get bad where they come from, when they get here, people attribute to them being stupid. And the same jokes that are more than a century old make the rounds, only you just take out the noun and put in a new noun. When my buddy, who now he works at the library as one of the systems librarians, reference librarian, Pat Benner, when we roomed together in Newton Hall for a year, and then he went to Lebanon, and surprisingly there was conflict in Lebanon, surprisingly, when he was there. But when he got back, he said, all the jokes that people in the United States were telling about Italians and Polish people, he heard the same jokes told about the Syrians when he was in Lebanon. How did the Syrian die drinking milk? The cow sat down, and you heard about the Syrian terrorist that was severely injured trying to blow up a bus. He burned his lips off on the exhaust pipe. So all these things that I had heard since I was born about groups in the United States that were whatever the jokes were about. He'd heard the same exact jokes on the other side of the earth about whoever it was having a hard time and needed a place. And so I don't know why we do that. I don't know why we do it, but it's not true.
But I think it's like how we're saying, like the whole two-party system, or
find yourself agreeing with their whole agenda, you're probably stupid. You're inconsistent. And you confuse the government and politics and life as a community with a stupid stadium game, you know, a stupid football game or a basketball game.
But even like today, like with Facebook and all the different opinions, like if you're so like gung-ho in one direction,
Right.
it's almost like an easy answer because you're not
Yes.
taking both sides of the story, you're not
Right.
telling it all.
You don't have to.
Absolute right.
Your team is either the jackasses or the elephants.
And that's what's hard with like.
The red or the blue, right? We even got jersey colors in the whole bit. It's just the same thing as a stupid sport. And people are using the same part of their brain. We put them in a brain scanner, you will find that they engage with politics the same way they engage with hockey. Some people, cool, it's better than I can draw, but not relevant. We've got to look at what's a goal. If you're playing basketball, you want to be sure which net is yours, which hoop is yours. If you put it in the other one, then that wrecks the game, I guess. Yeah, you need to tell people playing American football which way they should face. Because if they get confused and turn and run the other way, that I guess is heinous for some reason. So first of all, we have to ask, do we need to actually live by goals? Do we need to live by goals or don't we? Can we just sort of take things as they go and not establish goals and just kind of get by? Do you think my dog has a goal? Wow, this year during 2017, I am going to bark in a higher register or something.
Can't you kind of do both though? Because you kind of like set yourself a goal, but then also kind of have a mindset of my goals might change. So you kind of have, I guess, like temporary goals because you don't know.
Well, is it breaking? Is it just disappearing? Well, I guess I'm not even orange. We'll worry about that later. At any one point, and we're a little confused about this, our consciousness, the focal part, like the workspace of the mind, what you're thinking about right now, if I say just look at that chalk and you're considering the pink chalk thing, wondering if I'm going to drop it, you're thinking about one thing at a time. Now you can cycle through and go, think about this, think about this person over here, think about the fact that your ankle hurts, think about what you got to do when you get out of there, think about your stomach is growing, and every 10 seconds you're thinking about what everything is, and I don't even have to say what it is. So we've got all these things competing for the spotlight of our focus, but at any time we're doing one thing. So first of all, we have to say that yes or no. Are you gonna say I'm goal driven? Some people you go, obviously not. He's 43 and he's still sitting right where he was playing the same video game as when his parents bought him his Commodore 64 back in he's still sitting there eating those Cheetos and have never had a job and college didn't go that well and back home and I'm there. I got no goals. I just kind of take it as it comes. That smells good. I'll go eat it. Whatever. You don't need a goal. You could, I could paint a better picture. could say, I don't like the rat race. I disapprove of all the exploitation and all of the false motivations and scrutiny and judgment and unkindness, selfishness. I'm just going to go and I'm going to join a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. I'm just going to go study. Well, what's your goal in doing that? I don't have a goal. I just prefer to be there. I'm not sure that Henry David Thoreau had a goal, really, when he was living at Walden Pond. He might have had a series of smaller ambitions, but for the most part, he was just experimenting with coexisting without being part of the crap fest. And what came of it, I think, would have surprised him greatly. And that's not a coincidence. There's actually two Buddhist examples, because he was motivated by the Buddhist literature that he was reading, as were the other transcendentalists in that era, Ralph Waldo Emerson chief among them. But some of the things that he ended up saying in Walden and Civil Disobedience ended up being the inspiration for Gandhi. And Gandhi, in turn, ended up basically providing the playbook for Dr. King. And then Dr. King and Gandhi and Thoreau ended up impacting Mandela. So sometimes it's just sort of people want to just exist. So this is right here an important thing, and it's not a given. It's not disrespectable or unrespectable to say, I'm not really goal-driven. I'm just kind of don't want to make deep footprints. That's all. I want to be respectful. It's not a goal. It's just personal practice. So, but if you are goal-driven, so you're pursuing something, you want something to be more of or less of or something, there's a major split in kinds of people. Some people would like to find out what's actually true, and some people, everything to them, everything is a contest they have to win. And everything that's a contest that they have to win is a contest that they need to be sure someone else loses, or their life doesn't have purpose. This is the split right here. This is the split where Jesus and the disciples went their separate ways philosophically. And the disciples never changed that part. There's some particular issues that they were heinous on, like Paul was trying to kill Christians and all that. He was holding the coats while they actually made a martyr. And so he changed that part of himself. And he changed his value system by saying, okay, I'm going to say this is good, and I used to say this was bad, and that which I used to say is bad, I'm now going to say is good. But it was still all about winning. It was always a competition. It was always about setting up an organization and gaining territory in the whole. Jesus was basically asking them to seek truth and goodness, honesty, love. This isn't the way of love. Now, Peter, you mentioned, well, can't you maintain more than one thing? Not at a time. What it ends up being is, what percentage of the time do you focus one thing at a time on this, and what percentage this other? But it isn't coherent. It's not about balance. The yin-yang is an Eastern explanation looking for balance, and it isn't the way, it isn't the exact words or the kind of myth that Western philosophy, American civilization, European civilization, they don't identify with the yin-yang idea, if you call it that. But if you simply say it's all about competition or homeostasis, then they understand that. This is not love. This is about self and about your group. You've always got to find out who you're against. To have victory, you have to have somebody to have victory against. Jesus was trying to say, don't be against anybody. Don't have an out-group. Don't look at someone and go, outsider, insider, outsider, insider. Don't do that. They're all inside. Okay? The disciples got rebuked on multiple occasions for wanting to always draw a circle around them. When it comes down to that, depending on the circumstance, you draw a different circle, but then you'll change the circle later on. If it's just to play, or if it's to work, or even at church, look at the warfare as people in the church try to draw a line to decide who's acceptable and who's not acceptable in the church. Look at the warfare that results.
Do you think we would ever get to a point where we could kind of draw a circle and include everyone, or would that not be possible with our human nature?
Actually, there's a lot of funny ideas about human nature. It depends on which part of human nature you mean. And that's a very complicated issue. But it is a very simplistic thing to just say, people are selfish, that's all there is to it. And anything better than that is like extra credit, so you better look out for yourself because no one else will. It's not true. It's the way people over here need it to be in order to sustain their worldview. But it's an absurdity over here, and it doesn't measure up to fact. It doesn't measure up to brain science, I can tell you that. Really. It doesn't measure up to brain science. Even in Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene, in that book, the three main explanations that evolutionists give for the existence and persistence of altruism, of people being willing to do things that cost them, to help others, without any apparent, get something back. There's the notion that DNA itself, at that level, is just doing anything it can, even at the expense of the organism, to, move itself, and then it's not really personified that way. It's just a logical survivor bias thing is all that it really is. We just personify it to make it dramatic. Then there's the kin selection thing, where we'll help, the amount of help we'll give, the cost to ourselves, so that we'll still decide to give help to somebody else at our own expense, even our own death. It depends on their degree of consanguinity with us in terms of relationship. And then the third one is group. They don't have to be related, but the group offers something to your kin, and so then you'll, like military kind of stuff. Well, Dawkins even says, in the book The Selfish Gene, although it's misquoted a lot, he even says, this is what we see going on in the animal kingdom, but with people, it doesn't work that way. With people, for thousands of years, there have been social realities that have a certain, take on like another persona, where you get taught like manners and to be heroic and to be not selfish and all that kind of, and those things, he called them, first of all, mimic routines or something like that, and then mimic genes, to mimic behavior we see from each other. It sort of has, like, the young mimic the old, so it's not it's not in the DNA. And then that mimic gene got shortened to meme. That's where we get the term meme. Richard Dawkins made up the term meme from what he earlier called mimicry gene. And a meme is something that gets tracked. You know, somebody thinks of something or does something, and other people copy it, and then pretty soon it goes like, spreads like a virus, or like a gene. So he even said, and I mean, people quote the title of the book, and they quote the chapters on lower mammals, but they don't ever get into that part when they're trying to make their case for their case. Does that make sense? So I want you all to recognize that what we're talking about when we talk about what's good and what's bad, and well, what do you think is a good life and what do you think is a bad life, or what's a good thing or a bad thing, we're talking about values. What do you value? What do you want more of instead of less of? What do you want to have happen instead of not happening? And what do you want to have less of? And what do you say, oh, I don't want that to happen, or I want that to happen a lot less? Those are because you value certain things. Certain smells you like. But if you come into your room and your room smells like poop tonight, you're going to be looking everywhere, checking the bottoms of your feet. You're going to go and look under the bed. Did something die? Did it flush the toilet? Why does my room smell like poop? Because you don't like that smell. But if you come in the room and it smells like lavender, you go, cool. Wonder if somebody got a new candle or something and it's sitting there, you know, unburned, because we do not burn candles. We do not do that. Or somebody has really nice aftershave or cologne or perfume or whatever. Hand cream. Oh, I like that smell. You come in and someone's really cooking, and you start salivating, you know. Window opens and somebody's grilling outside. They're grilling and you're going, move toward the smell. Man, you come in, it smells so much like chocolate. Really like it. Well, why don't you like poop? Or vomit? People don't like the smell of vomit or poop. My German Shepherd does. If he came in and it smelled like poop, he'd be going, dude, where is it? You gotta gnaw on some of that, man. If it smells like something dead, you know, you take him out in the yard and someone ran over a toad last week, you know, and it's all kind of half crusty and half slimy with maggots. He's going, let me at it, man. He's drooling on his way there because he values it. Yeah.
So like as a society, it seems like most people, not everyone, but like most people are kind of looking out for the betterment of either themselves or other people. Like if you lump it as like the United States of America as your people, like.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. Let's go on with it. But when you say better, that's just a form of good.
Yeah.
So we haven't established what that means.
No.
Keep going.
But like if you look at like left or right or whatever, Democrat or Republican or
Whatever that means, right?
Whatever that means, or whatever you find your social group as, whatever that may be, whether a bigger perspective or a smaller perspective, and whatever you define good as, everyone's trying to like do the same, not the same thing, but everyone wants better, like whatever that again.
Whatever they value, they want more of.
More of.
Right.
So how can we go about getting everyone, not everyone, but like how do we go about getting everyone on the same page of what to elevate society?
The short answer is you can't. The longer answer is I'm working on that in my dissertation. Because we are actually at a point where we darn sure could. If you could demonstrate that this actually doesn't make you happy, not happiness, it gives you pleasure, but it's sinusoidal. When you get this kind of pleasure, you have to pay the piper. There's your yin yang. When you do for other people, and it doesn't even matter if you're this kind of person, unless you are neurologically, unless you're an extreme psychopath, even if this is your game, nevertheless, when you give your resources away to somebody else, it's that. It doesn't go back down. Period. And that's not partisan. That's neuroscience.
You said that if we show other people, show everyone that this doesn't work, but then that works. But the thing is that research is already out about showing that living a life like that leads to a better life satisfaction.
It is,
Yet
yes.
it doesn't change anything.
And does it
So
change
what's-
anything? Yes, it does.
Well,
For a percentage of people that are probably already inclined that direction.
yeah.
But think about the number of people today that it wasn't true 20 years ago, that are talking about living humbly, modestly. There's magazines and books and movies about voluntary simplicity and being generous, and people are giving away more and more and saying, I don't need to, and they're saying, I'm going to get rid of my car. You know, I'm not going to be such a selfish pig. But does it really fix it and get rid of those folks who would just be happy to eat the corpses of these people?
I feel like it just
No,
kind of
it
like
doesn't.
the group polarization again. It just kind
Yes.
of like it makes people that already believe this believe it even more.
And this
then
is thousands
that
of years
kind
old.
literature circles around that group even more.
Yes.
This is the people that choose to be ignorant to it.
Yes. And even if they know. I mean, is there anyone here? No, let me just say this. Am I the only one here that knows that it's rancid for your health and longevity to eat meat, especially red meat? But then there it is, right on that menu, and you saw it go by to someone else's table, and you're going, oh yeah, well, I could die in a car wreck. I'd at least want to have had the lamb. You know, maybe being old is overrated. You know, you know better. There's nobody that's over here so much that we don't know better than stuff, but we still, you know. It's an onion. You keep unpeeling it, and then what's left of me. At least my experience. Am I the only one like that? You know, but then, you know, what did Paul say at the end of Romans 7? Say, look, I am not arguing with you that the law is good. I agree that the law is good. Yes, we should ought to do that. Now, that's an important law, but let me tell you about a realistic law that's actually the law of my organs, my body parts. In the King James it says, my members. See, here's how they work. My body part of me says, this new law, what I say I'm going to do because it's a good thing to do, and I'm going to do it from now on, that's exactly what I don't do when it comes time to do it. And then I say, this thing, that's a bad thing. I am not doing that. Because I know it's wrong, and it's not good for me, so never again. And then as soon as the opportunity comes up, that's the law says, that law says I'm doing it. Then he says at the end of chapter 7, Romans 7, who can deliver me from this death trap body? And then he concludes his thought in the first part of Romans 8. But thanks be to God that gives me the victory through the Lord Jesus Christ. There was war in his body. So I thought of that And what I'm going to do is say, there is nobody that's going to be closer to the head of the line to get their life extended than the people over here. Got to live a long time and get enhanced. Fine. But we take away the parts that enslave you. Not the parts where you're free and you have things that you like and everything. We don't take that away. What we take away is everything where you wish you could control it, but you can't. Like, if you're a heroin addict, you can extend your life, and when we could fix that with technology, and then not fix it. Or you're a pedophile. You run around molesting kids in a neighborhood. Here I am to have my life extended. Oh yeah, we're getting right on that. No, but we'll fix that and extend your life. Okay, that'll work. And I reason, and I will argue, that hoarding, you know, like when you have too many cats, or too much paper in your house, and then the stacks fall over and you die under the stack or whatever. That kind of stuff, you don't want to be doing that. You're compelled. People with obsessive compulsive disorder, they get in the car, drive half a mile and have to drive back because they're not sure they did 13 clockwise things on the knob and then 13 counterclockwise, and they didn't go around the house 13 times before, and then get in the car and then drive away. And 40 miles, my mom drove us back so she could do the door. People that have that nonsense want to not have it. There's not a lot of argument about that. Now, people that also enjoy the game, the Monopoly board. So let's say we bring out the old-fashioned, not on the computer, the old-fashioned Monopoly board with a box from Toys R Us. Put out the board, and there's slots for the different colors of Monopoly money, yes? So we play. And you get so much of that money that you got all the hotels and all the houses, and I don't have any, and I'm like, I can't even get out of jail, you know, when I go past it, you know? I can't do anything. I can't even afford to pay when I land on your stupid hotel. I don't have anything. But then, somebody comes in the room, and they've got an armload of these boxes, and they set them down, and they take the lid off, and there's not even a board in there. There's not even an iron or a little dog or, you know, anything for game pieces. There's not even a set of chance or community chess cards or anything. All there is money. The big bills, just the big bills, and all those boxes are full of them, and they just put them out there, and for anyone to just take. It's just, everyone's got whatever they want. What happens to your game? Because you were all set up, and I was all goofed, and so now someone comes and just throws the money all over the place, and it's like, you're going, well, no one took anything away from you, right? So, today, if you want to take a picture with this thing, how much does it cost if you take a picture instead of not taking the picture? Nothing. It doesn't cost a thing, right? It doesn't cost anything. When I was a student here in this classroom, the first class I had in this classroom was general psychology. And I sat right there in fall of 1979. And if I wanted to take a picture, I definitely didn't use the phone. That's absurd. The phone is a black thing that's screwed to the wall. And you don't see anything except a curly little cord. That's it. And if you wanted to make a call like to Sacramento from here, and you want to talk for, you know, a couple hours, $100. Maybe $150 for the one call. And I don't mean 100 today dollars. I mean 100 those day dollars for a call to Sacramento. It was long distance to call Napa. You get up on the phone and you call Napa and you go arguing with somebody in Napa from Angling. And you go, oh, this is a $17 phone bill. Which is like $70 today. And you didn't take pictures with it. If you wanted to take a picture with it, you got your camera, you bought some film, put the film in. First of all, the film was like $6 for 12 exposures. You put it in there. You can only take 12 pictures, or 24 or 36, depending on what you paid for. And then you go get it developed. Now, if what you take is a picture of your thumb, or your zipper, or something like that, it costs exactly the same amount when you get a crap picture, and every picture is more than $1 to develop. More than $1. So, Kodak was all set. They had quite the little arrangement for the world. If anyone wanted to take pictures for anything, they were just making billionaires. 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 But, oh, bummer. Now we don't need any of that. Where's Kodak today? See you, Kodak. How about record companies and record stores? Oh yes, there's old collectible vinyl and everything. That's a novelty shop. Records, I mean, if you were less than 30, you might have spent 75% of your income at the record store. You had to have your tunes. But there was no iTunes and scanned off stuff that you could get anything you want just by Googling it. YouTube, listen to YouTube and have it digital. You had to get the record, and they were always scratch, you know. You'd be playing along and go, it was crap. And so now, what does it really cost to get a song? I mean, what do you really honestly pay for a song? Or even dishonestly? You don't pay anything for a song. You don't pay anything to take 1,000,000 pictures. And here's the hot news. Everything is exactly going to go exactly that way. Everything is going the way of music and photography. Everything. 3D printing is just the beginning. What I'm telling you is, if you can just print anything, you can print a printer. You go on today, those little MakerBox things that sit on your desk for $700 or $800, people will let you download a file for free for printing improved parts of it so that it works better. People get those, and then they take the parts and download an upgrade and print it and stick it on there, and it didn't cost them diddly. And the things that stuff gets made out of is just going to be information, including your food and your energy. So all the people with all the houses and all the hotels, the game is spoiled. How do they get happy? There's no one to have victory over because no one's playing. Kyler.
I was just curious, when you said that you don't pay for the photo, wouldn't paying for the price of the camera or for the phone go and be the price that you're paying for those photos?
Well, the phone doesn't cost any more than the camera cost then. Plus it's a phone. You got one, and it's doing your music too. It's your phone, your music, your picture, your maps, we didn't have a GPS. What's your calculator? Oh, yeah, it's your calculator. I paid $500 for my calculator. For just a calculator. And I still have it. It was a big old novelty. I got one, actually someone stole one and paid the fortune for it, and then I got another one used later on, paid a couple $100 for it, a TI-92. A full-on TI-92. And that is one. It looks like a 747 console. But the throwdown calculator, if you turn your iPhone sideways, has the same all the same stuff. Plus, so they're coming down and coming down and coming down. And people are really serious about having just a basic income and everything that you would want to have anyway, just free. Robots will do this stuff. Today, you don't have to go down to the river the whole day just to do your laundry once a week. Right? Do you realize what an enormous bit of progress it is that you don't have to go down to the river for 1/7 of your awake time every week and beat on rocks with your clothes? Very soon you will be printing your clothes instead of going to the store to buy them.
Don't you think because like you get rid of these ways that you play a game competition with one another, will just create good ways?
Yes. We play. We go on the TV, and people are, instead of just having a talent show, it's a big old battle. Instead of a cooking show where they show you how to make some cheesy potatoes or something, now it's a big old Super Bowl game of cheesy potatoes. You know, and battle music, and ridicule, and elimination. It used to just be some nice person would just get on there on the TV and just show you how to make something, and you go, oh, okay, maybe I'll make that. That was all it was. It's like, there's a few places on YouTube where you can get just that. When you don't want a bunch of horse manure, you can just watch somebody make the thing. But if you put it on the TV, it's like, it's got to be a big deal. Now, instead of going to a concert, we have like Battle of the Bands or something, you know. So yeah, we make up ways to do that. If people could curtail their activities to that, that would be progress, wouldn't it? If it's in the entertainment, you know, if you're entertaining yourself with it. But I think what it does is it continues to reinforce those neural pathways to make you, in your consciousness, a person who doesn't feel satisfaction unless somebody else is defeated. You can't feel like you've ever accomplished a goal. You can't ever try to do something and get it right unless someone else gets it wrong. I can only succeed if I make you fail. I can only get a win if I make you lose. So here's the problem with that. That's sick. That's sick. And as a result of this waste and nonsense and rivalry, we're burning our house down. We're burning down the only place we can live. So I think that there's a really strong argument for we can't afford that kind of crap anymore. And I'm going to make it as strongly as I can. Now, if a person was relieved of that kind of itch that can't be scratched, because that is an itch that can't be scratched. It's like if you ate and you never got satisfaction when you eat. Never. You get a bunch of little pleasure, but then you just want to up the ante like a heroin addict until maintenance is a fatal dose. That's what's happening as a species right now. Anyway, I'd like you to keep in mind that this notion of what's good and what's bad, and that depending on who you ask, and what's your basis, well, it's what you value. I want more of this and less. I don't want to move toward that. I want to move away from this thing. I don't want that to be. I want that to go out of existence. I don't want to experience it. I don't want to have it. I don't want it to happen to me. That's bad. And what I do want, that's good. Something that I think is going to make me feel pleasant sensations and not unpleasant. But what's that even mean? What's a pleasant sensation? What is pleasant and what's unpleasant? What's it mean? You know, if I scratch your cornea, most people would agree that's unpleasant. You know, just drag something real sharp, and it just takes a little layer of tissue off the cornea. Oh, baby, that feels bad. If you get bleach in your eye, you're gonna have a response that most people can at least find common ground on. but not everybody. Again, nothing is simple, because there's people who, if they don't hurt themselves, they can't get stimulated sexually if they don't have hurt. And it turns out that the difference between what's going on when we hurt and when we have pleasure, sometimes it's the same nerve endings that are activating the same parts of the brain, and it's a matter of context of how you regard it. Think about when you have an itch and someone scratches your back. What if they're all careful when they scratch it? Keep their fingernails out of it. We're going to be real gentle when they scratch your back. No, tear a hole that comes through to the front. Huh, come on, it's killing you. Get in there and scratch my back. And it feels good too, doesn't it? Yeah, when you get into the hot tub, oh, it's too hot. It's too hot. Oh, it's too hot just right. Or you go for a massage and you want deep tissue. And it hurts so bad that you scream a little, you know. You go, ah. You know? It's like a little seizure. And you go, oh, that hurts so good. Right? It's a complicated thing. It's about how we frame it. This whole discussion we're having about what's valuable and what's not valuable, what's good and what's not good, what's bad and what's not bad. Values. That is known, the branch of philosophy that studies that is known as axiology. I want you to know that. A-X-I-O Logy, L-O-G-Y. Axiology. Okay? It is the study of values. What's valuable? And here's a little preview as we work through. It's going to be really hard to settle that question. It's a question. But not every question is the kind that there's actually an answer for. We have never found an answer for it. Where do you find a stud in the wall to hang what's really good? Where do you find a foundation that's not going to be up and moving? What's the bedrock? What's the anchor? Well, we don't know. It's never not debatable. That's why proposals like mine are not somehow some logical slam dunk. They can have weight of evidence, but there's good arguments to be made on the other side. And mature philosophical people know that every one of their opinions and positions, that's true. For every one of their positions, there's a legitimate way to say, oh, well, maybe not. Shoot, now what am I going to do? Now I don't know what to think about it. That's right. That's right. You know, one time when somebody did that, sitting in the back, in a class that I was teaching, it was unwholesome stuff. And the part where it came out like that and they scrambled and they couldn't get the button to shut off and they're putting it in and they're panicking and turning around and everyone's turning around. And use your imagination. It was full-on sound. It really broke the ice. We bonded, having had that intimate experience as a group, having, that shared memory. So axiology. There are some things that there isn't really an easy way to say are right and wrong. Like what's pretty and what's ugly. What's beautiful music and what's heinous music. I mean, I listen to some stuff and I go, oh man, it's like ear vomit. It's terrible. And And then there's somebody who I'm having an intelligent conversation with. They may be smarter than me and more cultured than me and play 9 instruments and be good at everything. They go, oh yeah, the reason I really love that song. And I had talked about, it was right from Satan's armpit, that kind of music, and yada yada. And the person says, actually, do you know what they're singing about here? No, I mean, I don't have to. I mean, you can just hear it's right from the pits of hell. And they say, well, yeah, I mean, it sounds bad like that, and they're trying to make it sound bad because they're representing something that is really bad. And, you know, how would you have them to represent? You look at it and you go, geez, that song was written really for something pro-social, for something actually really loving. And then I look at it again and I go, I really hate that music, but man, that's actually really important music. And I've been schooled on that. When I was a youth pastor, I had a whole party line to say about every kind of this kind of music and all that kind of music and everything. And then somebody said, would you realize, you know, what it's saying? I can remember all the religious groupies, all the God Squad was really down on Pink Floyd, on the Dark Side of the Moon album. Supposedly, if you spun it backwards, you could hear different demons talk each time. You know, that rumor runs its course. So, my roommate, not Pat Benner, another roommate, had Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album. So we did have to try to see what you hear it backwards, and you hear, but you don't actually hear any. I didn't hear any demons, so maybe I didn't stand the right direction or have the right speakers or something. But then I listened to Brick in the Wall, and I said, wow, that's really important. Man. My wife, when she sends that email, she has a lyrics to Brick in the Wall. She's a teacher. My pastor's wife, she has a lyrics to Brick in the Wall when she sends an email. That, I mean, from time to time, she cycles that through as one of her messages. That's a really important thing to consider. And so I had to recognize it's tricky business deciding what's good and what's bad about people's art. Really tricky business. Plus, I thought when I was a 6th grader or 7th grader, I thought that if a man was handsome, a man was handsome. And if a woman was beautiful, a woman was beautiful. And everybody should be able to agree. I mean, I could tell by looking if a girl was good looking or not. So then, we come to college after I've been here for about a year, and the class I've been with, because I came here after 11th grade, but my class finally came here, and the campus is going nuts over the men and women from the class that we all knew weren't worth being with, weren't worth looking at. You know, they were not the ones. It was like, oh yeah, and then somebody's from another academy is like, oh, did you see? I think she's from Sacramento. Dude, did you ever date her? Say, no. Oh, man. And guys that couldn't get a date to save their life in Sacramento come here and they are BMOC. They are all of that. Big man on campus. Oh, that one's passé now. That's so yesterday. I got to get my glossary tuned up. Man. And then I was trying, and then I met people from various cultures, and they had actually opposite standards of what was attractive. Then I said, well, obviously they're wrong. It's not so obvious. There's no right and wrong. And you look at people, if you go to the mall and you check out people that are just, they may look funny to you. But you ever notice they find each other and they look like they could be brother and sister. They don't have to be the same ethnicity, but they have this same peculiar, like their nose is shaped exactly the same as what it's like, oh. And then they're like, relative thing. There is no, is it beautiful or is it ugly? There is no, really, what's good and what's bad that no one will argue with. And you and I may have some things in common because we're in this country. We have some contact getting programmed in our culture by Christianity and by Seventh-day Adventism and go to the same school. So we may share a lot of things. But there's people who would dispute probably anything we stand for. And they feel like they're doing the right thing and like they're wholesome and we're horrible. Wow, how do you organize a country? We'll talk about that on Thursday.